This is Stephen Platinum, your friend in wrestling, with Platinum versus AEW Dynamite. This is from last night, June 18th, 2021, and I guess next week they're going to be on Saturday night. God help them, that's a rough one. They're going to be on Saturday night, and then they'll be back on Wednesdays. And when I go to see them in Miami, it's going to be July 7th. It'll be most definitely on a Wednesday. At least I hope so, or else, yeah, I got the wrong hotel nights. All right, so we open with a thing about Jake Hager and Wardlow, and we open with their MMA cage match. Opinions varied on this thing quite a bit. I think if you were looking for a perfect simulation of a mixed martial arts style fight, you were going to be roundly disappointed. But if you were looking for sort of a pro wrestling up of an MMA fight, you definitely got that. They threw in some pro wrestling elements for sure. They established that if Hager gets you in this head and arm, that's your ass. They definitely let Wardlow shine, especially in the first round. Just real interesting, cool stuff. I don't imagine they'll do this very often, but they treated it like a big event. The camera angles were very reminiscent of what you would see in UFC or Strikeforce. I thought Aubrey Edwards looked great as a mixed martial arts style referee. It completely worked for me. I could understand how it didn't work for other people, but I honestly love seeing the Inner Circle and Pinnacle kind of going at each other on an individual basis, or a tag team basis in the case of FTR and Santana and Ortiz, which they're building up to. I love it. I thought it really worked. There were a couple of hits in this thing. Normally I don't talk about the sort of bell-to-bell stuff, but there were a couple of hits in here that looked really good. There was a brawl afterwards where Dean or MJF, where Dean Malenko was hit, which I thought was a kind of like a nice shocking moment. We bring Jericho in, and then MJF just jumps him. Really brutal. Takes off all the equipment on Jericho's arm, puts him in the salt of the earth armbar. Great stuff here all around. The six-man is the main event. They have a promo from Frankie and Penta and Eddie. The Frankie promo I thought was really great. Eddie was a good follow, and then Penta finishing it off with Zero Miedo. We go over the rest of the card. Go to a commercial break, and right before we come back from the commercial break, we have one for the Rampage, August 13th, where they're really highlighting Kenny Omega and making him look like a rock star. It's a cool thing, and it's a cool way to go. Team Taz talks about the heat between Starks and Cage, and they address that. Match number 2, Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky in a handicap match against Darby Allin. I thought this was as clever as it could be. Darby wanting to fight this thing alone without Sting, and Sting acknowledging that's what he wants and honoring it. Darby with the zip tying of the legs of Ethan Page, I thought that was incredibly clever, but at the end of the day, Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page overwhelmed by the numbers and being clever and decent wrestlers in their own right, winning finally with the ego's edge. Cool thing there. Match number 3, Orange Cassidy against Cesar Bononi. Cesar Bononi looked fine in this. He's getting less and less awkward. Definitely a showcase for that. They are putting over Orange Cassidy's Orange Punch like you would not believe. The makeover spot that they did with Orange Cassidy on the outside of the ring, I really thought detracted from the match in a big way. I get that they're trying to do a thing with this crew, but I just thought it really kind of took me out of it, made the match less enjoyable. I think it blunted the obvious push for Orange Cassidy. I didn't care for it. Then again, you're going to try things, you're going to crash and burn. I thought this was definitely a crash and burn as far as that went. After the commercial break, Matt Hardy and his crew, they lock up Christian in the sort of de facto chain link cage storage area and give him a talking to, setting up further shenanigans betwixt the two, leading up eventually to Matt Hardy against Christian, I would assume. Match number 4, Cody Rhodes and Brock Anderson making his debut against Aaron Solo and QT Marshall. I thought Brock winning with a kind of a jackknife pin was kind of a cool way to go on Aaron Solo, of course. And the after effects of Cody Rhodes, some would argue, okay, he's letting Brock Anderson have a moment with his father, Arn Anderson. Some might interpret it as Cody didn't like not having the spotlight on him. I don't know. There's enough ambiguous stuff here going on that I thought it was interesting. I didn't think this was a highly successful match in and of itself. Though QT, everybody was working hard, and they were covering up Brock's obvious greenness the best that they could. It's the kind of thing that AEW attempts, and I'm all for it. Not like I said, not everything's going to work. A lot of things on this show did not work, and I'm a big fan of AEW in general, but I just got to call them as I see them, including this promo with Jake Roberts and Lance Archer. I have no idea what the point was, no idea where they were going with it. It felt like a promo for promo's sake to give Lance Archer something to do, if I'm being honest. The sit down with JR and Andrade similarly didn't seem to advance very much, except for we'll see what you can do later on, and we have a surprise. Okay. Again, this middle part of the show just completely went dead for me. Alex Marvez is there with the Dark Order and Adam Page in a segment that's perfectly fine, but again, nothing advanced, nothing really promoted. Which is not like AEW. Usually they have a bunch of irons in the fire and they let you know what's going to go on in the future shows, which they do. They eventually sort of promote these cards coming up for sure, but this middle part of the card I thought was incredibly weak. Penelope Ford against Julia Hart. Julia Hart really getting out there. Penelope Ford eventually going over with a Muda lock, which for some reason they could not identify in the commentary. The commentary tonight sounded particularly, I'm not going to say that they were lost. I'm going to say that there was just less focus going on. That's what it felt like. That's what it sounded like. Tony's there talking to Britt Baker, and Reba and Vicky Guerrero shows up. Kind of spoils that party. Okay. We promote the cards coming up. Then we have a nice little video segment between about FTR and Santana and Ortiz. I really enjoyed that. Commercial break. We came back, and Jade and her attorney/agent Mark with a promo that again just didn't feel like it advanced very much. I gotta say, this is one of the weakest Dynamites we've had in a very long time. That's not to take away from the fact that we had a very good main event. Good Brothers, yeah, and Nick Jackson taking on Penta, Frankie Kazarian, and Eddie Kingston in what was kind of a foregone conclusion. You had to think that the Elite were not dropping this one, and they most certainly did not. The spray comes into effect. And then Carl gets a pin with the Super Cutter. And that's the end of the show, of a show that felt, honestly, of very little consequence and very little advance, which is not like AEW at all. Let's hope they get back on the schneid this week. Coming up.